Welcome back to Movies and Cool Stuff, where today we bid farewell to Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. The 7th and final season came to an end here in the UK just last month, and I felt like I had to mark the occasion. So let's talk about it. Before we begin, I just want to take a minute to address my previous video on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., which came out about 18 months ago and covered the first 6 seasons of the show. Let me just say that I was not prepared for the minefield that I walked into. I think it's fairly obvious that I'm a fan of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. because why else would I have watched 136 episodes of it? And I do compliment the show a lot in that video. But just because I'm a fan doesn't mean I think that it's absolutely perfect and flawless in every way. I criticised a few of the storylines and I mentioned that some of the characters annoyed me from time to time, and needless to say, people were not happy with me. I received some really aggressive and mean-spirited comments, which I was pretty disappointed by, to be honest, because that video was a labour of love for this show, and I was pretty happy with how it came out, so it was a shame that people got so weirdly defensive and personal. These are just my opinions, and you do not have to agree with them. Anyway, I said in that video that I was apprehensive about Season 7, because Season 6 was, quite frankly, a bit of a mess. But I'm relieved to report that I actually really enjoyed Season 7, which I think was a very ambitious and worthy send-off for this show. I was sceptical about the time travel premise when it was teased at the end of Season 6, but I actually think it was very effective at turning these final episodes into a real celebration of the series. I really appreciated that they brought back several memorable guest stars from across the series, including Patton Oswalt, Patrick Warburton and Deechan Luckman as Jai Ying, and introducing younger versions of other characters also worked remarkably well. Shout out to John Garrett, Victoria Hand and Gordon. These inclusions felt really rewarding for die-hard fans, which is quite appropriate because I think we're the only ones still watching. Not only that, but the time travel story mirrored Avengers Endgame really nicely and felt like a part of the wider MCU despite not really crossing over with the movies in any major way. I think that was partly helped by the costumes, production design and visual effects. It's no secret that network television shows can sometimes be a little bit hampered in this area, but it really felt like ABC pumped a lot of money into this final season. The time-hopping premise was also great in how it kept the first 9 episodes of the season feeling really fresh and exciting and allowed the writers to do some quite unconventional stuff. So 3 of the episodes that really stand out in my mind were the noir special titled Out of the Past, the totally excellent adventures of Mac and the D, and the time loop episode As I Have Always Been, all of which were really fun. And that's another thing, while the stakes were high this season and there were some serious moments, there was an overriding sense of fun over everything, and I think that was a good call. Personally, I don't think I would have enjoyed it as much if the tone had been really bleak. And there were some great jokey moments this season, including the gang attempting to fight Enoch several times in the time loop episode, Deke becoming an 80s rock star, Simmons impersonating Peggy Carter, and Coulson being stored in a big 80s TV. On top of that, there were tons of great little micro interactions between the various team members this season, too many to really go into here. But it really demonstrated just how well the cast and the writers have come to know these characters over the years. For me, the MVPs this season were Daisy and Sousa. I think it was such a great idea to bring back Enver Joe Kai and a nod to Agent Carter, which was sadly cancelled before its time. And I loved that Sousa was just a really nice guy. You know, he didn't have any beef with anyone, he was just there to help and took everything in his stride. I think that we should all be a bit more like Sousa, really. To my absolute shock, I actually didn't mind Mac this time. He was alright. Those of you who have seen my previous S.H.I.E.L.D. video will know that I have never really vibed with this character, but in Season 7, you know, I felt bad for him for what happened to his parents, and I liked when he started acting unpredictably in an effort to combat the Chronicoms. It seemed to acknowledge the fact that he has been a bit of a stick in the mud at certain points in the past. I really like James Paxton as a young John Garrett, and I've been surprised to see some people criticising his performance. Yes, the character is a bit goofy, but I think that's very much intentional, and I kind of love how much James leaned into it. I think he did a great job channeling his late father's performance. Elizabeth Henstridge is always good, and Simmons is one of my favourite characters, but I definitely missed her being with Fitz. Iain De Caestecker has a really passionate fan base, and I can totally understand why. He's great on this show, and when he finally popped up in the finale, it really just made me wish that he'd been around for the whole season. I think it didn't help that I don't really fully understand the story justification for his absence, and I think that's partly because I can barely remember Season 6. It's been about 18 months since I watched it, and I didn't like it at the time, so my memory of it is really hazy. Also, shout out to Jeff Ward as Deke. This character is often treated like a bit of a joke, but I for one am a fan. I think he's been a really strong addition to the team, and I liked his noble exit. But as I said earlier, I don't think that Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is an absolutely perfect, flawless show, and I do have some complaints about a few of the characters this season, starting with May and Coulson, neither of whom particularly blew me away this time. I was in favour of killing off Agent Coulson permanently at the end of Season 5 because I feel like the character really hasn't had much going on for quite a while now, and that is true unfortunately in Season 7 too. The writers don't even do anything particularly interesting with his transformation into an LMD. They touch on it a couple of times, but nothing particularly insightful ever gets said. Additionally, I think I was disappointed with May's role because she just felt so different. Her new emotion-based powers, I feel, fundamentally altered her personality, which is annoying because I liked her the way she was. And I don't think that Ming-Na Wen did a particularly good job at portraying those empathic abilities either. Yoyo really didn't have much to do this season. There was a bit more drama about her possibly losing her powers, which I feel like we've kind of done before, and the cynical part of my brain wonders if it could have been budget motivated. I don't know, but what I do know is that the way she got her powers back was really dumb and didn't really make a lot of sense to me. Fortunately, there was some redemption in her arc though, because I really liked her final scene of her in the car on a mission with Piper and Davis. It was really cool. As for Enoch, I've always found him a little bit annoying, to be honest with you, so his death didn't really resonate with me all that much. And I found it quite predictable in the sense that this show has a long-standing tradition of killing off any new additions. You know, I'm talking about Trip, Lincoln, Jeffrey Mace, etc. So if someone was going to die this season, of course it was going to be Enoch. But while I had some misgivings about the characters that I've just mentioned, the only one that I really hated was Nathaniel Malek. Everything about this was just completely botched. Once again, just as they did with Azelle, the writers introduced the main villain of the season way too late, and I was really frustrated that he was basically just a dork in a trench coat. Thomas E. Sullivan's performance was really quite poor. I didn't find him intimidating at all. I actually found him pretty laughable in some scenes. I mean, if you think Kylo Ren acts like a petulant little child, get a load of this guy. He was unbearably lame, and I think I would have preferred it if the writers had shown a little bit more faith in having the Chronicoms as their main villains. I think there was a lot of potential to them as body snatchers meets Terminators. That could have been quite cool, but ultimately they always just seemed quite half-baked to me, and I never developed a great understanding of what their problem was. So maybe if they put a bit more effort into developing Sybil and the top hunters, that could have worked better. Frankly, I will take anything over Nathaniel Malek. Overall though, I like this season quite a bit, and I'm happy that each character got such a fitting ending. I'm particularly relieved that things worked out for Fitz Simmons. Those two are going to have some crazy stories to tell their daughter when she's a bit older. We get to see Mac on the helicarrier at last, which I feel really established him as the real director of S.H.I.E.L.D. and not just the pretend one, which is sometimes what it's felt like over the past few seasons. And it did feel only right that the final shot should be Coulson driving off into the sunset, and shout out to Lola, who is looking cool. So the big question on everybody's minds now is, are we ever going to see these characters again? Well, never say never, this is the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but I have a feeling probably not. Please don't yell at me. I just think that with the closure of Marvel Television and the launch of the Disney Plus shows, this era of the MCU has kind of come to an end. Kevin Feige now has complete control over the future of the franchise, and I don't think he's ever been a particularly big fan of this show, unfortunately. So as much as I would love to see these characters make a grand return on the big screen, I just wouldn't advise getting your hopes up. If I could pick one character to bring over to the movies, I think it would have to be Daisy Johnson, because Quake's powers are quite unique, and I'd be interested to see what the Marvel writers could do with them on a huge blockbuster budget. Also, Daisy's had quite a big role in several Marvel comic book stories over the years. I remember recently she was actually director of S.H.I.E.L.D. and locked in a really bitter power struggle with Maria Hill, so it would be great to see that on screen with Chloe Bennet and Kobe Smulders. I'd love to see that. I know some people had theorised that Daisy is now working for S.W.O.R.D. because of that final scene where she's exploring outer space, and that she could show up in a related Disney Plus show or movie. Again, it's not impossible, but I wouldn't hold your breath. And that brings to a close our discussion of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Season 7. Finishing this show was quite a bittersweet experience. I've been watching since it first came on the air in 2013, so it's been a part of my life for the last 8 years or so, and I will miss it. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., it's been real. Thank you for watching my review of Season 7. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please consider hitting a like or subscribe, and let me know in the comments section below your thoughts on the final season of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. For now, that's all folks. I hope to see you next time.